Welcome to Careers Under Construction. I'm Justice Peterson. On this episode, we speak to Jaret Horbatiuk, the owner of Tractus Projects. We learn about the early hurdles launching his company, how he implements farm culture with his staff, and why he compares himself to the GM of the Winnipeg Jets. Please enjoy Jaret Horbatiuk. Awesome. So before we get started about talking about your career today, Amy told me something interesting about your background, that two things actually: avid bass fisherman and president of the Winnipeg roller, like inline hockey league?
Winnipeg Inline Hockey League, WIHL.
Oh, nice.
We call it the Dub.
The Dub, nice. Tell me about that. I actually didn't even know that Winnipeg had that.
Yeah, well, roller hockey is an interesting sport. It's kind of, it's really big in the States.
Okay.
Really big in Europe. There's pro leagues out there. And, Winnipeg's kind of this funny little city that actually it really picked up here. And I want to say this would have been in the late 90s. I don't know if you remember, but way back in the early 90s, what was the name of the league? Our Roller Hockey International, RHI,
right.
was a professional roller hockey league in the United States. And it was selling out arenas more than what the NBA was filling their stadiums with.
Seriously?
20,000 people would come to these hockey games. And these teams were owned by various, sporting guys. Like one was I forget the name of the Los Angeles had a team, and it was the same ownership that had the Lakers.
Okay, wow.
And their roller hockey team was selling out more tickets than the Lakers were.
No way. Wow.
So that's how popular it was in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And this would be like played in NHL rinks, like,
Right.
Canada Life Center, and sold out, 20,000 people, full contact.
Nice.
You can't stop.
That's why you're selling tickets.
And, fights and everything.
Nice.
And, but the neat thing about the sport was that it was 4-on-4, no icings, no offsides.
Okay.
And I thought it was 2 periods at the time.
Probably
a special
shorter
puck.
duration.
Yeah, shorter, a puck that slides on a sport court floor.
Right.
And the best thing about it is that in a lot of communities, you don't need an ice plant. You can play this outdoors. You can play it, right? So even from a grassroots standpoint, it was really popular and taking a lot of interest in California and Florida and those types of places, right?
So where is it played in Winnipeg?
So smash cut to Winnipeg, and there used to be a body called Roller Sports Manitoba. And Roller Sports Manitoba had a variety of different sports. They had roller skating, they had skateboards, they had artistic dance skating on rollerblades.
Oh, wow.
And so Roller Sports Manitoba, they probably had some other sports too, I can't remember, but roller hockey fell into this category, and it was a sanctioned sport. So it meant that it got funding from the government, and so we're talking maybe 96, 97, smash cut to the Pan Am Games, 1999 in Winnipeg. Roller hockey was a demonstration sport, and Winnipeg was hosting. And what happened was internationally, you had all the countries came here, and it was Team Canada and against Team USA and all these rivalries, right? But Winnipeg ended up getting out of that sport court floors, and we were able to install those into arenas across the city.
Yeah.
And roller hockey was really gaining some traction, and that led to a lot of international players that left here and ended up playing in Europe and in USA. I was one that actually ended up, now I'm playing in, last couple of years, been playing in Europe with in a tournament representing Team Canada.
No way. I didn't know that about you.
Super fun. Yeah.
That's funny because when I went to school at McMaster, which is in Hamilton, Southern Ontario, I'd never heard of this, but there was like ball hockey was super prevalent.
Yes.
Right? Like it was played at all the outdoor rinks. When they took the ice out in the summer, they played ball hockey, which sounds like it's like kind of similar rules, 4-on-4, no icing, no offside. Or the offside actually had to clear it past the red line, not the blue line.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But when Amy told me about your that, I was little confused, but I was like, man, that'd be a lot of fun though, because you actually see it pop up more and more in like reels, like Facebook reels, TikToks. Like you start to see these highlights of this, and I'm like, where's the sport coming from?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in the WIHL, Winnipeg Inline Hockey League, we play out of Maginot Arena. We have leagues for the kids,
right,
and the junior kids, and then the adults play.
Okay.
So this past year, like our season runs from April to June, end of June. So we respect the cottage season.
Yeah, it's a pretty short season.
And no one wants to be in an arena in July anyway. So,
right.
So yeah, and I think we had like almost 500 people registered this year, signed up between all the teams and the kids and whatnot.
Cool.
And so it's really getting some traction. And like I said, out of that, because we're one of the few cities in Canada that has a rink, we represent very well on the international stage. So there's tournaments in California we send kids down to. There's tournaments in Argentina or Italy, and we send kids to. So, and they get to represent Team Canada, and it's interesting. And they're from Winnipeg. So
yeah. I feel like I could sit here and talk to you all afternoon about this, but what I want to jump into is your career. Where you started in your career. Now, obviously, you've owned Tractus Projects for, was it 20 years now?
Yeah, this is our 20th year.
20th year.
It's crazy.
Wow. That's great. So tell me, like, how did you get your start in construction?
Yeah, so, I mean, like anything when you're young and you want to be somebody when you grow up kind of thing, what's the plan? If someone asked me, you're going to own a construction company later on in your years, I wouldn't understand what that was.
Right.
But I knew I always liked construction, and right out of school, I worked construction. I was a laborer on some sites and just picking up garbage or whatever I was doing. But eventually, driving a Bobcat, as the responsibilities grew. I ended up going to Red River College and did the structural engineering program. So I ended up getting a career with engineering companies within Winnipeg. So I worked for a variety of different people. I worked for engineers, I worked for contractors, I worked for architects, some of my experiences that I've had. And I felt that every time I was in these situations, I gravitated more towards dealing with the guys in the field. So it was construction administration, it's called. The job's already designed and built. And now you need a guy that's administering the project. Make sure it's getting built right. You're inspecting on site. You're dealing with questions that come in the field. And I always felt that I related really well to, the guys swinging the hammers, right?
Right.
And, and these were jobs I had, I would come suit and tie, it was the part of the thing, right?
Yeah.
But as I kind of learned a little bit more about myself, I found that I ended up working more with the construction guys, right? I was with a architectural firm at one time, and I had a call from an old employer who wanted to run a roofing company. And he called me up. He says, "How do you feel about running a roofing company?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm not sure I'm excited about roofing, but I'm excited about the business side."
Right.
So they were silent partners, and we ran this roofing company, me and another colleague. And so that really exposed me to marketing, relationships, pricing, quoting, dealing with not getting paid, getting paid, all those types of things that happen with running a business, right? And I really started to get excited about, this is what I want to do, but not roofing.
Right.
So I did that for a couple of years, and then started Tractus after. And building off those experiences. It wasn't easy at the beginning. Obviously, it never is.
Yeah.
You're constantly, adjusting and pointing the pirate ship in a little different direction as you start going towards where you want to be.
Right. Did you start out as a subcontractor, or were you a general contractor right out of the gate?
We actually started it was myself and a partner at one time.
Okay.
I had started off as a kind of like a small little boutique engineering company.
Oh, interesting.
And so we would do shop drawings. I don't know if you're familiar with shop drawings, but that process, we did a lot of that for contractors. We did new drawings for new builds. And then we would actually parachute ourselves into architectural or engineering offices to help them if they needed, they got a big job and they needed some help, we would go in there and help them with just drawing and AutoCAD and that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Design work, right? Worked okay, but a tough business to sort of, I guess, grow, right? Like, it's just, you had to have so much knowledge that you couldn't, like myself and my partner had, that anytime you need to hire somebody, you didn't get that person that had the same knowledge at the rate you could afford to pay them, right?
Okay.
So what we found was that, like I said, just making these little adjustments was that, this certain model of business wasn't really the best for us. But if we were to marry everybody together, contractor, architect, engineer, building owner together, and we were the general contractor, this could actually work and have legs. So we started doing that, doing design build, started designing things for people and then building them with the contractors that network that we had. And Tractus Projects was thus born out of that. So
interesting. So you started out doing architectural drawings, shop drawings, pivoted your way to the general contracting side. You said marrying basically the consultants, the contractor, the owner of the project.
Yeah.
Was there like a certain challenge that you specifically felt like you were overcoming too often that made you want to make that pivot? Was it mostly just like pay? Because nowadays, like, I feel like when people want shop drawings done or create drawings from scratch, they're usually just going to like a large architectural firm or they're bringing it in-house. Like, I don't personally hear of a lot of people that like contract that work out. Was that kind of what made the pivot for you guys, or?
Yeah, well, when we were doing shop drawings, I mean, a bulk of our work was the structural steel shop drawings.
Right.
A little funny story with that one was that we found this was a great market for us. And what we were marketing to was a lot of steel fabricators here in Winnipeg. And the steel shop drawing guys were kind of a bit of a dying breed at the time. You couldn't find them. It was super technical. Like, you're basically detailing every connection, and you got to design the connections. It got super technical, and it actually got beyond what I knew what to do, like some of these connections. So, and one of the things was that it was my first lesson is if you make a mistake in the drawings and they got to come out and fix it, they're sending me the bill.
Right.
So that doesn't go over well when you're only charging, I don't know, $2,000. It doesn't take a lot to get $2,000 in mistakes. So, so we ended up we needed what was called a checker. And a checker is somebody that's just another set of eyes that looks and reviews all your drawings, and they're sort of the outside looking in. And Dominion Bridge was a large company here in Winnipeg.
Yep, I remember them.
And, I'd been gone for quite some time, but there were some old Dominion Bridge guys here in Winnipeg that were still around. Now they were retired and doing their own thing, but I needed to find out who these guys were because I needed a checker. I ended up running into a guy named Roy Allen, and Roy Allen would have been, when he worked with us, he would have been in his mid to late 70s. Oh, wow. So he came to our office and he would work for us. And it was kind of the coolest thing because he would come to work and, just tie, suit, the old school guy. And he'd come and we would put drawings and he would check them, and he was so meticulous. The guy was sharp as a tack, but he was late 70s, right?
Right.
And I still remember we were working, the warehouse was set up, we were all kind of backs to each other, and he actually fell asleep.
No way.
And so we kind of, I was working and I turned around and I kind of saw he was kind of hunched over, sleeping with his back to me. And I'm thinking, I was talking to one of my employees there, and he goes, "Do you think he's still alive?" And, so we just sort of like, I think he's sleeping. So we waited, 10 minutes. He woke up and right back to work. But we quickly learned that he needed to have naps during the day. And but he saved us so many times just with his knowledge. He taught me so much about just connections, designs, how things are put together, just how shops work, you know, like, no, they don't drill those holes, they punch those holes. They don't cut that, they torch it. All these types of things are like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. You don't need the 16th tolerance, we're going to 1/4 inch tolerance. There's certain things that were were kind of standard, that these guys had been in Dominion Bridge for so long that taught us so much. And
Interesting. Okay.
he's still around. He actually came to my office. He would have been in his 90s, and he popped in and said hi, and I still have a tremendous amount of gratitude with
Crazy.
him. But yeah.
So going from what you did to like general contracting, obviously a totally different beast. I'd imagine like there's different types of people that start companies, right? Like there's people that are really good at sales and marketing and business development. Then there's other people that are like more on the accounting and finance side when they start a business. Two very different skill sets. Me, myself, personally, I'm more of a sales, business development guy. So going out there, winning work, feeding the machine, so to speak, that type of the stuff is kind of easy for me. Whereas I had to get a really good accountant, business coach to teach me on the numbers. Like I knew nothing about reviewing a P&L statement, balance sheet. If I want to invest this much money, where's my ROI, deferred revenues, all this stuff was like a totally different language to me, right? But going out there and winning work was something I was pretty confident with. Like where would you put yourself in those two categories, or if there's a third one you can think of? Like when you started your business, were you comfortable going out there and just securing work, or were you more, more focused on the operation standpoint?
Yeah, it's funny because, everyone's different. For me, my challenge was what you're good at. Okay. The business development. I find that my challenge. Yeah. I now have people that help me with that, but in the early days, you didn't. And so, for me, it was a lot of work just coming out of my shell to get that, and getting yourself in front of people and talking. And it was something that I felt that I had to learn because I didn't have it naturally, right? I see myself more as the doer guy, like I'm in the trenches, rolling paint, whatever. These are early days, right? Obviously, I don't do that anymore, but on the tools, doing that kind of stuff, and just getting in the mix of it. The financing side, yeah, you're right. Good accountant, they'll teach you that stuff. Yeah. Good lawyer, he'll teach you that stuff. Right. Banker, all that kind of stuff.
You mentioned earlier, like the getting out there networking, like you had to learn it. Like, how did you learn it?
Right. So when I got started, I just remember struggling a little bit with like not knowing people or even knowing how to communicate, that kind of thing. Right. And in my early days, I ended up getting mixed up with a breakfast club. And they would meet I can't remember, Wednesdays at the Forks or something. And it was a group of 10 or 12 business owners that would have breakfast together. Right. But the deal is that, you'd have breakfast, but there was a business that represented every sort of facet of the industry. So you had a mechanic, you had a florist, you had a t-shirt making guy, you had a contractor, you had a mechanic, you had, all these types of. Their mandate was we don't want two of one, right? So, and what you had to do was you had to actually stand up in front of the group and talk about your business and what was the last week like and where are you going and what were the challenges and it was a bit of a Toastmaster thing for me. And as I got more comfortable with it, and listening to them talk and how they meet and how they network with each other, I was just a sponge and I sort of took it all in. Yeah. It got me to a level that I could go to the next level and then the next level and next level. Because, there's BOMA now and you go there and you still got to talk to people and you got to hold a room a little bit, right? Or Winnipeg Chamber, you want to be part of these organizations. You can't be in a shell.
Oh, absolutely. And I bet you that Breakfast Club or Toastmasters helped build that initial confidence, right?
100%.
Because you'd probably never be able to step into a BOMA room and, spark up a conversation with somebody unless you learned that foundational skill of how to communicate about your business, especially with other business owners. I feel like that's something that's like a really undervalued thing for a lot of people that start a business, is not surrounding themselves with the right people that are like-minded. I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that'll support you, right? People that are maybe going through similar challenges as you, people that you look up to, right? And a lot of times, in my case anyway, and maybe you can relate, is I found that when I started my business, my circle got a lot smaller, pretty quickly. I was focused more on quality than quantity. Kind of one of those things where I was like, I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, And that's why I joined a lot of clubs like the Pinnacle Society, the YCLM, is just a lot of like-minded people where it's like, hey, if I'm having weaknesses in my business, I can share that and be vulnerable with them.
Mm-hmm.
They can do the same, and we can like help each other out. They're not really groups where it's like, hey, did you go to the Jets game last night?
Right.
Like that's not what happens with those groups, right? But it helped me, and it sounds like it helped you as well to be a little bit more like assertive. After I have talked to those people, it builds up a certain confidence, and now I can assert myself in situations that I likely wouldn't have otherwise.
Correct.
Is that kind of how you look
at
that?
You start getting confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
You hear yourself, you see yourself in these situations, and you kind of go, oh, hey, that wasn't that bad. Meanwhile, inside, you're like being ripped apart,
Right.
That's how I was.
Yeah.
And, you get these little victories and you start believing in yourself, but you have to put yourself in these situations that challenge you.
Yeah.
And these guys were coaches for me, and they taught me how to do this. And, and then, even today, I'll give a great example. My wife used to work for this tech company, and the CEOs of the company would have this tremendous Christmas party. It was amazing, right? And I just loved going to the party, not because of the party, but I just loved listening and meeting to the CEOs of these companies. There's about 5 or 6 of them. And they're all like-minded, and they're very casual. You could walk up to them, you could talk to them. And I've always admired how approachable they were. But then when they're up in the room at the podium talking to, it might have been 150 staff.
Right.
Just how genuine they were.
Right.
And I just always thought, that is how I want to be.
Yeah.
And it leads to the culture of your company, right? And I never really put that all together until I started seeing these types of things, right?
Right.
And you don't know what you look like until maybe someone films you, or you get a recording like this podcast, right? So
Yeah.
you don't really know until you kind of listen to yourself and you go, like, hey, it wasn't that bad actually. I can do this. So.
Yeah, and I think you just gotta start too, right? Like, how did those guys get to where they are? Well, they just started, laying the bricks, metaphorically speaking, like one at a time. You get out of bed, you lay one brick, and chances are, if you get out of bed and lay a brick, you're probably not just going to lay one. You're going to go 5, 6, 10, and over time, you're going to have built this foundation that's made of, bricks, concrete, whatever, but it's not sand, right? It's going to be able to hold you up as you move forward. I think it's interesting that you said like how genuine they were. Like, is that kind of the way that you look at your leadership with your company?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So, we have a pretty cool culture at our shop, I find. I've sort of branded it farm culture.
What does that mean, farm culture?
Yeah. So it'd be like working on a farm. Like, nothing's beneath or below you, right? Huh. And, we all work together. I was under a dump trailer yesterday, changing a tire because I had to go to the dump because I just finished cutting the grass on one of our sites. Like, these are all the kinds of things that you'll see me doing, as well as our site superintendents, as well as our project managers. We have a shower at our office for a reason because they've come in because they have to clean a job site. Right. And it's not the kind of thing where we do it all the time, but there's times where we got to roll the sleeves up and we got to get to work. And somebody let you down or something happened or whatever, and it's all hands on deck. And the people that we have working with my staff are farm culture people. The hiring, sort of the strategies that I do for hiring, I think has relayed into that a little bit. My strategy for hiring is more behavioral management, not necessarily skill related. They got to have some skills for sure. I'm not going to hire somebody that has zero construction experience, but I'm more interested in the character of that person, their life experiences. Right. And many of the questions we asked when you're interviewing people is, give me an example of when this happened to you and how did you deal with it? Give me an example of when you had to deal with an upset customer. Give me an example of when you had to take, initiative and lead by example. So these are all kind of the questions that we'll ask in the interview. And
is there like one characteristic specifically when you're asking those questions you're looking for? Like it sounds to me like
genuine.
Yeah. Genuine, obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe like a high degree of like accountability.
Yes.
Something like that.
100%.
Yeah.
Accountability. I didn't like how that looked, so I wanted to change this. I checked with my boss. These types of things where they take that initiative and do it, right? So, it's a pretty neat culture. I think if you're ever to come to the office, you'd probably pretty quickly see kind of how it's going. I mean, the girls are putting a barbecue together,
Nice.
in the shop, right? So,
and you're in the midst of moving headquarters? Is that right?
We are, yes.
Yeah?
So that's exciting. Cool. Yeah, we just bought a new building.
So where were you before?
So we are currently at 1000 Elgin, which is near McPhillips and Notre Dame, that area of the city. Cute little spot. We're right by Virology Lab, Winter's Auto Body, that kind of area, if you're familiar with it. Mm-hmm. Lots of reputable businesses down there. But we got this neat little pocket that we moved there in 2014 or 15, can't remember. So been there 10 years, I guess.
Wow.
But we have no more room. Haven't had an office in about 4 years right now because I had to give mine up because I don't have the space. I'm at the boardroom table, so yeah. But it's time. So we're moving. We probably will move around November 1 is what we're thinking. Yeah. So.
And just like a much bigger space?
Much bigger, twice the size.
A couple more showers maybe for the staff?
We still got a shower, so I'm showering a mop sink, but that's all part of the Tractus brand, right? So
awesome. And how many staff do you have now?
We're at 19.
19.
Yeah.
And what's the layout of like your org chart? Like you have like 5 PMs, some supers, like give me that layout.
Yeah. So 9 site superintendents.
Okay.
I have 5 project managers. What does that put me at now? It's 14. 2 project coordinators, an office accountant. We have Jen is our office manager. Mm-hmm. We have a safety group as well, so that we brought that now in-house.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I'm at 19.
Cool.
So yeah.
Wow. That's some good growth in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like when you started general contracting, like one thing I hear that's like really common with people that try to take the leap in construction is getting paid, right? Like payment terms. Mm-hmm. And like, as you know, like payment terms can make or break like any business really, right? Like in recruitment anyway, just to give you a couple examples, like there's a contingent search and there's retained search. So by contingent, I mean like if you find the successful candidate, the company will pay you if you find them successfully, mm-hmm. and only if, right? So you could spend weeks on a search, not find anybody, or they don't hire and you're not getting a cent.
Right.
Right. Or there's retained search where you take a portion up front and then a portion at the end. Right. Because like cash flow in any business is king. And if you're working contingent, you can't flow cash, period. Right. You could have 99% margins, but if you're not flowing, you're going under.
Yeah.
Like how did you sort that out early on in your like entrepreneurial journey? Because I would imagine like going from an employee to a business owner, like you probably didn't know much about that before.
Right. Yeah.
So like, did you have to like learn the hard way there a couple times, or did you figure it out pretty quick?
Yeah. I mean, for us, I like day one of Tractus starting, like,
right.
You got no customers, you're starting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And hope the phone is on the desk and hopefully it rings. I mean, it's not that bad, but I mean, it was, what we ended up doing is we ended up having a couple of good customers who knew we were just starting out. And, I'm very grateful for those guys. And I think that they knew we were just starting out. So they paid us pretty quick, right? But then as you get through your business, I've had I've had a couple people not pay me, right? And those are and not even, no chance of me ever getting paid. They went out of business or went missing or whatever.
Right.
And, obviously, those are lessons you learn to deal with. But, It's funny, like I think back to the early days, you're taking anybody and everybody as a customer because you need everybody, right? So you got these Gen 1 customers, I call. I might be up to Gen 17 by now. I'm not sure what number I'm at, but, we're dealing with more sophisticated customers, University of Manitoba. Well, they'll pay you, right? You have to perform, obviously. They're going to pay you. City of Winnipeg, they're going to pay you, right? Terms might suck. It might be 30, 60 days or 60, 90 days before to my time.
Yeah, you don't need to do a credit check on the City of Winnipeg.
Yeah, right. As opposed to maybe a little restaurant down the street that you're not quite sure if they're going to be around any longer, right? But I felt that what we did is I avoided the massive one project syndrome, right? I was always had a couple jobs going on. So if this guy is a little late paying you, you're still getting cash from the other customers that you're billing for, right? We never put our eggs all in one basket. We're always spreading them around, and that allowed us to keep cash flow. And then if this guy wasn't paying you, I wasn't losing a lot of sleep yet over it because the company was still, solid, right? Right. So, but yeah, I mean, everything's a risk, right? Construction, I mean, we could do, $800,000 worth of work in a month. And if, that's a lot of money, an hour being spent, and you don't know, you're going to get paid, but when, or maybe you don't get paid, right? So,
right.
But thankfully, it's only happened maybe 2 or 3 times on my career where I've been stiffed, and yeah, so
that's good.
And some were big. One was a big one.
That's too bad. What would you say is the portion of your work right now between like hard like spec bid versus like negotiated with a private client? Like, is that something that you're continuously pivoting on, or?
Right. So design, bid, build, which would be hard spec, is probably majority of our work. I'd probably say 80% of it.
Okay.
We do maybe 2, maybe 3 design build jobs a year. So those are really fun. I find the most rewarding, at least anyway. Okay. That's where you're designing with the owner and you're picking stuff and you engage the designer. Those are really fun. And then we have a certain amount of customers just come to us direct as long as we meet their budget, right? And it's made very clear to us what their budget is because we have our history with them and we've built from them before. So yeah.
Interesting. So you were just talking earlier about Planet Fitness. That
would be one of the customers that we build a lot with. That's,
yeah.
Have the budget.
So is that like an example of a contract where they just like they came to you, said, hey, here's our budget, and because you've had a great past relationship with them?
Yeah,
because you've built them all the Planet Fitnesses in the city.
6 or 7 here in the city. We've done them all. They like to keep the same team, right? And that's where the relationship thing is so important, especially here in Winnipeg anyway. They're from the States, and they have a level of comfort with us when they build up here. And so we take very good care of them. They're very important to us. And so, when they come here, it's the family discount we give them, right? Because we want to make sure they're always happy and that they don't go anywhere else. So they've been fantastic to work with. We always like customers that are, make quick decisions. They have there's an incentive for them. They have a deadline. They need to have all their gyms built by. They have ownership here in Winnipeg and Manitoba. So they're motivated and they're great. They're real great to build with.
Cool. I have a question about your struggles early on as an entrepreneur. Like, building a construction company is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. You got to have thick skin. Is there a project that happened early on, or maybe even more recently, where something didn't go right and it was like a big learning experience for you for the next job?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I want to say, and I'll admit it too, there was one of our first jobs that we did. We were pretty new, right? And we were... I don't want to say didn't know what we were doing, but I mean, we weren't on top of it as we probably should have been, or an experienced contractor would have been. But we were starting out, right? And it was a pretty big job. And I think what happened was we when we had realized just how far behind we were in the project, that we didn't have any policies or procedures in place. We didn't have a purchase order system that was kind of really trackable. We didn't have an invoicing system. We didn't have a way of tracking our sub-trades, and these were all things that we had built off of our experiences with this job. We ended up finishing the job. It ended up, being a beautiful job. But, at the cost of that customer probably not ever calling us again, right? And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But, so those types of things, absolutely, you become a quick learner in those environments.
Yeah.
And, there's that one there. I'm thinking of one we did in Saskatchewan. We didn't get paid, right? This was a job that they just left, and we didn't have any kind of, I guess, what's right, skin in the game or whatever to sort of control that a little better, right? Like there's ways you can kind of still control the property if they don't pay you, and there's little tricks of the trade that you learn as you go through these experiences.
Right.
And so there was that one there. And some were really good experiences. I'll give you a great example. The McDonald's, we built most of the McDonald's in 2013 to 16. We did most of the McDonald's here in Winnipeg. And those were fantastic opportunities for us to test our systems and get and verify that they are working, right?
Right.
And so very quickly, when we started landing these McDonald's jobs, I remember we got our first $1 million job. I was like, I'm pulling hair out of my head. Well, how am I going to do this, right? It's $1 million, And, very quickly we had procedures and policies in place to track our sub-trades, our scheduling, our network of contractors. There's certain gaps that are left because, you can't fill everything, and you're trying to, find those gap-filling guys and your network that grows out of that. So I would say in 2013 to 16, our company, Tractus, really had nailed down its policies and procedures. And by 17 and 18, we were getting, more bonding. We were getting better insurance rates. Our safety was now, we could build a safety program based off our experiences, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then boom, we're now with the University of Manitoba doing most of their work there. I think I have 6 site superintendents there right now doing work.
Oh, wow. So that's not just like a coincidence, like the building out of the policies, the procedures, it helped you gain better clients, opened more doors,
yes,
and potentially maybe even like a more forecastable revenue stream as a result?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like there were times where, we were on I always call it a 3-month wave. You're on this wave of work, but in 3 months the wave crashes.
Right.
What's going to happen on month 4?
Mm-hmm. And
so we ended up extending those waves to maybe 6 months, a year, right? And I think we're on a year and a half wave right now, right? So it sure helps sleep at night,
yeah,
knowing that you're on a year and a half wave. But also with that, I have 19 people, so
right.
It's a little scarier that way too.
Does anything really like phase you that much anymore when like you hear like bad news? Like somebody told me yesterday about their, bad news that they had, and in my head I'm like, is it really like world-ending bad news, or is it just like bad news that like, in a month from now, you're probably gonna have forgotten about, not even think about it again? Like, does anything?
I think
really,
the pandemic taught us how to deal with that.
Yeah, right. But I mean, like, you're 20 years in of owning a general contracting company in a prairie market. Like, it's not easy, right? So like, you get some bad news. Like, how does that affect your leadership style?
Yeah, well, and I'll use the pandemic as an example.
Sure.
When we heard that and they were shutting everything down, and you couldn't, driving to work was, where is everybody? That was sort of my first experience. Was like, I might have to lay some people off here. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. We were busier than anything during the pandemic, and that was because the schools were closed, the university was closed, and those were our customers.
Right.
And they saw it as an opportunity to build.
Yeah.
And so,
well, construction was like an essential service during that time.
It was insane. The hardest part was getting materials.
Right.
But
it's funny because a lot like what you just said about, am I going to have to lay people off? Right? Like I think there was a lot of companies out there that panicked, but then some strategically used it as like a way to excusable, like trim 10% body fat in a way where I was like, we're going to lay off our worst people here, keep the 90% busy and potentially top grade.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we weren't that big yet at that point.
Right.
I don't even still think I am to trim fat. We're all lean.
Yeah, you've got a lot of A players,
but
like top performers.
I think the pandemic, and then now the big scare was these tariffs, right? And it's kind of like, you go to work with that with an eyebrow raised. They're going like, is this really going to affect me? You know what? We're pretty busy,
right?
And there's a lot of work happening, and there's a lot of public work still going on. Like the government's still spending money.
Yeah.
I mean, you just go on to BuildCast's reports, and you can see like the city of Winnipeg's busy, and spending a lot. Like, this year, 2025, we've quoted bigger dollar value than I've ever quoted ever. More elephants out there. And I don't know if it's because maybe now we're at this level or whatever you want to call it, but if you were to add up the dollar figure of what we've quoted this year in years past, it's quadrupled, right?
Oh, wow.
So that's when he starts these tariff scares and Trump and whatever is going on. I just step back out of the forest and look at the trees and kind of go, we're good, we're fine. This wave is healthy. These are good customers. They're blue chip companies. They need to get their stuff built. City of Winnipeg needs that fire hall. They need that library. U of M needs that classroom, right? So they're not going to shelve them. And Planet Fitness needs their gyms.
Yeah.
So.
No, for sure. That's interesting that you say like, the dollar values and what you're bidding could potentially triple. So like a lot of business owners, I think every business owner is probably pretty risky. Like you have to take a risk to just even step out there and take that leap of faith, right? But some people would consider themselves a little bit more conservative or risk averse. Other people a little bit more willing to take the risk. And there's also a huge difference between, how much money you bid a job for and how much money you actually make on that job, as I'm sure you've learned many times over 20 years. So like, what's your thought process when you see a job that's like maybe 2 or 3 times the size of what you would typically bid? Like, does that scare you at all, or are you pretty used to just taking those risks now?
Well, yeah, we've set some new records in quoting. It's funny, like, and you just get into sort of nitty gritty of general contracting and estimating and whatnot. But it took us a while to figure out there's certain milestones in sizes of projects. So a $200,000 job is quoted different than a $700,000. And a $1 million job is different than the 700. And then there's certain numbers as you start getting into, 3 million, 5 million, 20 million, right? Those types of, that formula all changes. And of course, we didn't know that until you start not getting these jobs because you're quoting them, right? And you're getting some feedback from the customer, like, well, where were we? Well, you were the highest. Oh, okay. I guess this model doesn't work. So, what we found was that, and we have some sheets that we use, obviously, at our shop that help us with putting the pricing together and where we need to be in margins and making sure our site guys have enough money so they can get paid. And was that what we found was that there were certain numbers that we had to have. And then your mindset starts changing this is a 2-year job, right? And in 2 years, this site superintendent and this project manager is untouchable. So you just lately take these 2 guys and put them on the shelf, and you can't use them again on a job for another 2 years. And you go, well, is that valuable to me? Like, is that smart? Like my best guy is now, I won't see him for 2 years, right?
Right. You could potentially miss out on other opportunities because your best guys are somewhere else.
Exactly.
Right.
And you need your best guy on that big job because it's a big job, right?
Right.
So, and not only that, the bonding, if you're familiar with bonding, how that works is, it's basically like a salary cap for a company.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes I think I'm a GM of a professional hockey team sometimes here, right? I have a salary cap that I'm only allowed to use, and it's my bonding capacity. So if I'm on a big job and it's eating all my bonding and I can't quote any other jobs because my bonding is maxed out, well, now I'm super handcuffed. And you go back to the beginning of this podcast where I talked about the elephants, how those can really screw you if they don't pay, because you got all your eggs in one basket. So, it is risky, these big jobs. It's nice to say, oh, we got this $20 million job, but you're in trouble for 2 years,
right,
until you get out of it. So
yeah, and you're fully committing yourself to that job without being able to sign any other players or put money towards other projects.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Interesting. I've never heard somebody explain it that way. That's a good way to look at it.
That's a big
salary cap of construction.
Yeah. Jaret shovel day off.
Yeah.
That's what I call myself. Yeah.
So where do you see Tractus in the next, like, let's say 2, 3, 5 years down the road? Like, are you on a pretty comfortable growth plan right now? Do you have more aggressive plans? What's next?
Yeah, I think for me is watching that wave, right?
Right.
Making sure it's a solid 1 year wave. Something I've always admired, some of my competitors who've been around longer than I've been, seem to have, as I meet with them once in a while, know what's coming 3 years down the line, right? I don't know if I'm there yet. I'm still working on getting these 3 year down the line kind of knowledge, but just extending that wave. I think the size of the company I'm really happy with. I don't, we're moving into a bigger building and we could hire more people, I suppose, but I really like the size that we are. I like the fact that, I can be genuine with my staff. I don't have to be, I don't know, like larger company guys have to walk and talk a certain way.
Right. You have to report into like a board of directors and shareholders, right? And
you won't see me in a suit and tie on our website photos. Yeah, that's for sure.
Nice.
But just more of the same. I think, the projects are exciting that we're doing. They're super rewarding. I check in with my staff. They seem to be very happy with the job that they're in right now. So I'm always monitoring that, and just continue to grow the family. So yeah.
Great. So November 1st, that's when you're moving into the new office.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll get the invite to come check it out.
You will.
Awesome.
You will. Yeah.
It's been a great conversation, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for coming. I think we're just wrapping up on our time here, but we really appreciate you coming down to the studio. We're going to have to have you back for part 2 once you're in the new office.
Sounds great. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thanks for having me. Great.